Hi, maybe we can start now.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for joining in. I'll just quickly run you through a bit of an introduction about our organization. So we are a certified global admissions advisory, career resource management, and test prep venture, which was founded by passionate individuals with top degrees in their respective fields. We have a support from 200 plus mentors across 50 plus career areas who have deep industry knowledge of their career areas and an impact-driven team. So our career resource management for school and college includes teacher training, resource mapping to support students in their career goals, and higher education admissions. We work with students from across 100 plus schools, and we have an admissions advisory which includes end-to-end services such as career aptitude test, hourly advising, profile and resume building, test prep, and admission guidance with visa preparation for 1,200 plus universities across 12 plus countries, achieving $7+ million in scholarships. Moving ahead, this is a little introduction about our organization as well, which is in a video format. So I'll just quickly play.
Hello everyone. Are you looking to secure your future? Here we are helping you with premium admissions advisory for grades 8 to 12, college students and working professionals, for UG, Masters, MBA, PhD for profile building, test prep, admissions and post-admit process. Meet our passionate founders Mr. Deval Mehta, co-founders Mr. Chirag Bhatt and Mr. Kevin Zanjani, and mentors with top degrees. Why choose TCC? Established in 2014 with a global presence and mission to make impact in student careers with admits to top universities with scholarships. Why students choose TCC? 1,000 plus students placed with 99.9% placement rate due to our unique personalized counseling and diligence process. Quick glance at our services. One is life coaching and mentoring. In this we will help you with following things. We also help with partnering co-curricular and extracurricular programs. And our experts provide accurate support for test preparation to help you get top scores. We also assist you for application guidance with summer and college application at top universities around the world. We have access to mentors with deep industry knowledge across 50 plus career areas. Post-admit we support you with housing, visa, travel, loan, foreign exchange. Now these are some success stories of 1,000 plus students including UG and PG. TCC has helped professionals and students from all backgrounds get admissions, scholarships and visa for top universities. Some testimonials for some undergraduates and postgraduate students.
TNI Career Counselling has helped me a lot, not just with the exams, not just with academics or getting into university. I had a wonderful experience at TNI Career Counselling.
The entire team was extremely approachable. It was such a fun experience. The relationships that I've forged that I'll remain for my entire lifetime.
This person is very approachable and he could really put himself in the student's shoes, I guess, understand where they're coming from. And before I met him, I was probably quite confused as to what career path I want to follow. But after meeting him, I feel like I have a lot more clarity. And
every time we were stuck with any particular issue and we called, he was always there. And I guess actually made a big difference, and Rashmi and I are very thankful for all the efforts that you guys have put in. Really appreciate.
So that's when, TCC was quite pivotal, because they made me realize that how I'm studying, but it's the techniques that I'm using. Very supportive.
He assisted me in finalizing the universities and colleges. One of the advantages that TNI has is that well aware about what the dynamics are about the admission process.
We have guided our students in 1,200 plus institutions and universities. We are also recognized by mainstream media.
Let's bring in some experts. Joining us today is Deval Mehta, founder CEO, TNI Career Counselling.
Thanks, Sonal, for having me here.
And had coverage from India Today, NDTV, BW Education, and more. Think admissions, think TCC, book your appointment now. Build a roadmap to your dream college and career.
Thanks, CM. And thank you, students, for coming into this session. And we really look forward to talking a little bit about consulting. Today, we have two special guests who are here. We have Sanaa Arora and we have SHUBHAM Singhal. Both of them are very accomplished. They have their career pathways. They've taken their career pathways to, and I feel like this is a discussion that we're going to have, but it's going to be an interesting discussion where they're going to explain to you how right from high school until college and then post that when they did their graduate studies, how they decided on consulting as a career. And you can, of course, during this time, ask any questions, but I would really appreciate if you put them down in text on the chat. Otherwise, we're going to try, by the time that we finish having a conversation, at the end, have a Q&A round where you can ask some more questions. You can just raise your hand. I'll call out the name, and then you can ask any other questions as well. Okay, so let's start. Siam, you'll have to move to the next slide. And we'll kind of start introducing our experts that are here today. So we have Sanaa Arora, who's currently a director for the consulting human capital practice at Deloitte. And of course, we're recording this session, so it'll be available later as well. Sanaa is, she's got over 13 years of experience across USA, UK, Middle East, and India. She started with Deloitte USA New York office and has been with Deloitte India for the past 4 years. She has partnered with senior clients to solve complex human capital issues and has diverse experience in consulting across industries and solutions. She holds an MBA from University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. It is also my alma mater. So very happy to have you here. And she's a certified internal auditor. She participated in the Indian Future Leaders Program, a selective group of Indian professionals chosen by Spain-India Council Foundation, and is a published author with articles appearing in the Turkish Weekly, Financial Express, Indian Review of Global Affairs, etc. I think while you will talk to Sanaa, you'll realize that she's an extremely passionate individual. And she's in the human capital practice, but she's going to share her journey with you. Okay. I'm going to move on to the next slide and our next speaker, who's SHUBHAM Singhal, also a very accomplished individual. He is currently a consultant at the Boston Consulting Group. He did his mechanical engineering from IIT Bombay and his MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. He has worked across multiple industries, including banking, steel, shipping, infrastructure, sanitation, IT, and hospitality. SHUBHAM's performance has been recognized with consecutive top performer awards at BCG and ENY. At IIM Ahmedabad, he was awarded the Director's Merit Scholarship and the Sanjeev Spiral Academic and Creativity Excellence Award. Additionally, SHUBHAM has a passion for researching discrimination and group psychology. Plus, he loves hiking and quilling. I hope that was correct, SHUBHAM.
Right, you spelled it right.
And you have to tell us more about that hiking and quilling that you're also passionate about. Okay. Great. So moving on. So this is going to be a really passionate discussion. I can see that we have a complete, a pathway from undergraduate in India, which SHUBHAM, went through the IITs, then the IIM. Very conventional. A solid route, right, in many ways. So great to see that. And then we have seen Sanaa, who was at Narsi Monji, did her bachelor's there, and then after that, went ahead and went to do her MBA at University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, also a top school, and then decided to go into consulting. And she worked in New York. Then she came back here to India. So very interesting, perspectives, views. We're seeing both these things, and I'd love to bring that out. So before I do that, just a little bit on what is consulting. These are just some initial slides, but I'd love for SHUBHAM and Sanaa to also in some ways confirm this in their discussions. So we've just put a slide of what is consulting. And what we're trying to explain to the students here is that just to get a slight idea, because when you're in high school, it's not always easy to understand all these terminologies, right? And a lot of the jargon that comes along with it. But just to define this, it's a practice of providing a third party with expertise on a matter in exchange for a fee. The service might be either advisory or implementation. So consultant can bring in principal services across sectors. So what they focus on is either business strategy, management, organizational, operational processes, or technology. Of course, there might be more areas which I'm sure that they would be able to tell you a bit more about, but this is just a starting point. You know, I'll tell you I'll tell you how a consultant comes in play. Today, you know, if there's a company that has started, whether it's in real estate, if they want to make a plan, right? And they say, okay, I'm going to come up with these many projects, this amount of time, and then I'm going to go and IPO myself, or I'm going to make an initial public offering in the primary markets. I need a plan for this expansion. And many a times they'll approach a company or a consultant to give them a plan, right? So there are many ways where consultants are really being used, and there are many different types of consultants, whether they focus on business strategy or management, organization, operational processes, or technology is what we're trying to say. Now, moving to the next slide. What are sort of the careers in consulting is what we're looking at: strategy, operations, human resource, management, financial advisory, IT. These are a few of them. And we'll hear more from our experts as we're moving along. So what do consultants do? What are some of their roles, right? Collecting and analyzing data, providing industry-specific, information, brainstorming strategies, organizing meetings, giving presentations, engaging in problem solving. That's what we're looking at more or less, but of course there's a lot more, which again, we'll hear from our experts, okay? Now, let's look at some of the universities, right, from where this hiring that actually happens for these consulting roles. So what we're looking at is some which are in India, some which are outside India or abroad. So the kind of universities that you see in India is BITS Pilani, the IIMs that we see, whether it's a IIM Rohtak or a Calcutta or a Bangalore or an Ahmedabad, versus an FMS in New Delhi, an SP Jain, Symbiosis or an XLRI. Then abroad, if you look at University of Toronto, McGill, these are in Canada. Then either Imperial or King's College, London School of Economics, or if you're looking at the US, could be, the University of Chicago Booth, Dartmouth, Tuck, or Duke, the Fuqua School of Business, or either Harvard, or either MIT, or Michigan, or NYU. So we're seeing that this is where typically you're seeing a lot of the hiring that happens. These are sort of feeders to consulting as an industry or as a role. So moving to the next slide. So this is just giving you a quick understanding of what are sort of the salaries, whether you're looking at undergraduate or MBA. Now, bear with me because a lot of this is what we got from Glassdoor, right? And this does vary. I can tell you at an MBA level, of course, these salaries are going to be higher. This is sort of an Indian context and depends on where you're graduating from. If I actually look at IIM's website, the minimum starting salaries, I think, are probably at 30 lakh rupees. And they go as high as almost a crore. So you're going to see that actually happens at the MBA classes. At the undergraduate, the ranges are anywhere between 6 to 11. So if you suppose go to an Ashoka University, you could start at somewhere around 8, 10, 11 lakh rupees as well. Okay, so as a fresher, there's always a little bit of a difference than when you're actually experienced. And that's what we're sort of seeing here. This is more of an India perspective. If you look at outside India, for an MBA program, if you graduated, I think the starting salaries are probably at $150,000 to $200,000. Again, something that I think Sanaa can tell you about because, when she graduated, of course, the market was a little different. Now it's a little bit different, but that's what we're looking at in terms of average wages, okay? Can we go to the slide before this? Just one quick, yeah. So undergraduate hiring again, I think I just missed this piece where we're looking at an undergraduate. If you look at a Flame, you look at an OP Jindal and Ashoka, some of them have programs directly where you can get those placements, even an NMIMS does. Of course, in an IIT or an NIT, or a Vellore Institute of Technology or BITS Pilani will also see that happening. So you can get into a consulting role both from a STEM background and a non-STEM background. That's the interesting part, right? But maybe the kind of areas that you're looking at in consulting, so maybe if it's technology, you might not be as apt for that if you came from a non-STEM background. So this is something which is interesting. And if you have any questions, we'd be happy to take them as we move along. And then this is something to do with a breakup of what are the highest paid consulting jobs if you're looking at outside, right? So if you're looking at abroad, if you look at marketing versus you're looking at, systems or financial or management consulting, you get paid higher towards those is what you're sort of looking at. Okay. Moving on. Great. So now just starting a quick sort of a discussion between, the experts, and let me start by asking this question to Sana. So Sana, can you share your career trajectory with us post high school? Just what are the choices, like how did you choose NMIMS for bachelor's, and, what did you do after? What made you apply to an MBA? Just a couple of these would be great starting points. Love to hear.
Sure, absolutely. Firstly, thanks, Dhaval, for having me. It's lovely to be here speaking with all of the students this evening. So just wanted to first start by wishing everyone a very good evening, and thank you for taking the time to attend this session. Hoping to make this very interactive. So we'll start off with Dhaval, but really looking forward to having a conversation with all of you and hopefully answering any questions that you may have. So with that, just a little bit about my trajectory, right? So I sort of like grew up in a household where my father was an entrepreneur. He had several sort of small businesses. So I was very interested in business as a field, right from childhood. And I would say that, I was one of those sort of like people in India who was never interested in science and engineering. So it was a very natural choice for me to sort of go for business management right from undergrad. And NMIMS is a top school in Mumbai. So that sort of informed my choice back then. And I took my time sort of dabbling into different areas in business after I graduated. So my first job after undergrad was with KPMG in the advisory sector, focus more on risk management and internal audit. I also worked in social impact. And as I sort of, dabbled in different areas, I realized that my strengths lie on the people side of business, right? And I'm very interested in culture, leadership, and the softer aspects of business. And I wanted to really sort of hone my subject matter knowledge and expertise in that. And Michigan is a great, business school, which has produced really, top-notch HR thought leaders like Dave Ulrich. So as I was sort of exploring higher studies, I was looking at business schools that have expertise in HR. Michigan, again, was a great choice. So again, that sort of informed why I went for Michigan. And it has a great alumni network, as, Dhaval can also provide testimony to that, right? And I would advise, if you're looking for an MBA down the line, right, the alumni network is something that you should really look at because it will help you throughout your career journey, as you switch jobs, as you network. So both like the academic credentials and the alumni network made me sort of choose Michigan. And, I just want to give like a metaphor to why I chose consulting after MBA, and Dhaval sort of touched upon that. But this was a line which really sort of simplifies it and has really stuck with me, which is that a consultant is a doctor for companies. So you sort of go into different companies, try and diagnose what challenge they are having or where they might need help in a particular area. I know, Dhaval, you sort of gave the example of the real estate plan, but there are many other challenges and issues that, all organizations have, right? And it's a really interesting job because it really, sort of makes you think on your feet every single day, right? You're going in, you're solving a challenge, you're brainstorming, you're collaborating, with different organizations. So I've been with Deloitte for more than 6 years now, and it's been a great, journey in the consulting world. So I hopefully that sort of, gives you a glimpse and an overview of my journey. I'll just pause there and hand it back to Dhaval.
Thanks, Sana. That was incredible information. I feel that's been helpful to a lot of students here to at least get a sense of a starting point, right? Of why you thought about right from that business background that your father had, and then you wanted you dabbled in and you figured that being on the human consulting side is probably your strength, and that works well. So typically, how long do you think, when you're in consulting, if you can give a little bit of an outline of a career path or a journey, how does one get in? Do they get in at an analyst level? Then do they kind of progress? What is it like, in consulting also? A bit of a roadmap would sort of help them also understand that, better. Is it very lean? Is it like, what's the growth like, right? I mean, you're a director now. And you've been through all of these phases, and I'm sure you can tell, many of them in terms of, and also in hindsight, you can always think about how you've kind of progressed, and how's that sort of growth for many who are who are considering consulting. So what could it possibly look like?
Absolutely. So I would say there are different entry points into consulting, right? So undergrad is definitely one of them, and you would most probably start off as an analyst or a business analyst in a consulting organization if you choose to do it out of undergrad. But having said that, I know, for all the youngsters out there, right, there are many different exciting options, and if you're sort of choosing to do, say, a startup or a non-profit, which we are seeing more and more, right, these days. So it's not that it's, you can't have an entry point into consulting if you decide to do it later in life, right? So the natural entry points are post-undergrad as an analyst or post-MBA as a consultant. But having said that, I think, the consulting companies nowadays are looking for more real life experience, lateral hiring, which means that, you are taking an experienced people from other backgrounds is also really picking up. And, you can have an entry point which is unconventional in nature, which is not your typical sort of post undergrad or post MBA, right? So if you choose to do something else, that's also okay. And lateral hiring, which I can speak more about, can also be a entry point into consulting.
Wonderful. And, so what you were talking about is also just transferable skills, right? So I'm sure that there are sort of transferable skills from other jobs that you would have that you can kind of move to consulting. I can tell you one of the biggest strengths consultants definitely have is their PPT skills, right? They're just so good at that, right? I mean, they could just make something which is an idea look so magnanimous on that screen, and, kind of bring out all that market data, and then, kind of really go down deep, right? And make it so informational that, it kind of, that whole idea, comes to life, right? So this is one. Wouldn't you say that's like one really big, skill that every consultant sort of has? And any additional skills you think that consultants would definitely have, and how do you think about this when you're in high school? Because you're picking up, sort of subject choices, and this is what I mentioned right in the start to many of the students, is that you can get into consulting from, a STEM background or engineering, or even if you're in business. But did you, because you got in from a non-STEM background, did you feel that you missed out on anything that was probably STEM focused?
Sure. So I would say no, because the way that most projects work at consulting organizations right now, and Shubham and I were having a quick word about this before this conversation, is that they are very multidisciplinary in nature, which means that me as a HR consultant, I work a lot with my strategy and technology colleagues on projects that they are doing for clients, but I come in and bring in the HR lens, right? Even if it is a digital or a technology transformation or a merger and acquisition. Just going back to the metaphor of a doctor, right? Like how you have a throat specialist versus a foot specialist. We have consultants, as you rightly said, kind of focused on different areas, but a lot of challenges that the clients are grappling are areas, where they need sort of multi-specialty support. So I don't think that I've missed out on anything. And also, I think now would be like an opportune time, for the students, right? You never stop learning. And upskilling is something that you need to do throughout your career. So even though I come from a non-STEM background, I can always sort of do online courses now, or invest the time to, educate myself more on emerging technologies if I feel, that is going to help me in my career.
Sure.
And consulting organizations do sort of invest a lot in your learning, at different stages in your career. So again, just want to encourage the students to sort of have that lifelong learning mindset. And it's not that you're going to stop learning after you graduate.
Brilliant. Thank you. And just two quick questions, follow up to this is, one is, since you studied you did your undergraduate in India, but then you chose to go abroad, and you went to the US and you went to Michigan. How has that journey been? How do you compare these two? If you can give a little bit more of an insight there.
Sure, and I don't want to give away my age because it's been a long time since I studied undergrad in India, but hopefully you can comment more on what the recent scene is. But at my point, I found that the Indian academic institutions, the courses were a lot more theoretical in nature, right? And you didn't really get the real life experience, whether it was through immersions, case studies, etc. And that is one of the reasons why I chose to go abroad for my MBA, because I wanted a course which is a lot more, real life and action oriented in nature and not just theoretical. So at least this was true for me many years ago. But I would request you and maybe Shubham to comment on India versus abroad.
Sure. Thank you, and thanks for that. And just one more, this last question is going to be a little bit more on time management, right? So, as a consultant, you're expected to travel because you go on different projects, and a lot of that actually happens, right? It's one of the big things. How do you really take this time management, actively, and how do you balance work, personal life? Any tips for that?
Sure. I think a good focus to have is, sort of like make a diagram of different areas of your life. So work being one, but also like your, family, friends, physical health, mental health. And just think about how you're doing in all of those areas of life and what is it that you need to do differently. For me, when I started in consulting, I'll be honest, I think a little bit of focus on my physical health, on friends and family was lost because, it can be a very demanding profession. But as you sort of settle into the career, right, there's always a learning curve. I think it's good to take a step back and also, make sure that you are giving enough time to the other areas of life. You're not burning yourself out. So that means being very disciplined about how you spend your time Monday to Friday, right? Making sure that you stop work, switch off your laptop at a particular time, make sure you have time for the gym and exercise, just things to keep yourself happy because you want it to be a sustainable career option and not get burnt out in, 2 years or 3 years. So that's the lens that I have taken, like how do I sort of keep my mental and physical health and how do I make this sustainable so that I can keep doing this for a long time.
Thanks, Sana. That's very useful. It's been such an incredible conversation. I might come back to you after I have this discussion with Shubham. So thank you for now. So Shubham, over to you. And I'm sure Shubham is actually looking at what Sanaa said. He's like, I'm still getting there when it comes to that personal life and organizational piece. Because, you know, balancing that, I'm sure when you're initially into it is a little bit harder, right, Shubham?
Right. And therefore, in the fourth question where I have an option to choose between the two, I actually want to start with the second part of it. And specifically in the context, like I think the audience is 10th grade students. When I was in 10th grade, I wouldn't think about the job that I want to do. I would only think about the next goal, which is like, which college do I want to get into? And I think it's incredible that at least you have 17 participants here who are taking this time to think about what should they do beyond their graduation and what should they actually do at job. And in fact, there is a very pertinent Harvard study which said that, so they surveyed a lot of the Harvard graduates across their lifetime. And what they found is that of all those who had a goal set that what they want to achieve in life, they were incredibly more successful than those who did not have a goal. And conversations like these, and I'm sure there are many other career paths as consulting, but being open to this conversation that what do I actually want to achieve in life will significantly help students achieve more than their counterparts who are not even thinking about this. After, I think there's some sort of background noise.
Yeah, I'm just going to mute them. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, there we go.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So should I talk about my career path briefly?
Yeah, I was gonna get to that. So Shubham, you can start by telling us about your journey. You know, how did you figure that you were, you set your goals high. You said, I'm going to do IIT, I'm going to do all of this stuff. You set your goals high. I can see that. So where did that come? How did that come around? How did you even stick around to like making sure that, you're going to work that hard, get to the IITs, and then choose consulting as a career?
Right. So I was always interested in maths and science. My father comes from a similar professional background. And in our daily walks, when he used to get time, we used to discuss science. And I was fascinated about science. I was also interested in law. And then I got to know that law does not have maths. And that was the only reason why I skipped law. Very narrow-minded at that point of time. But yeah, so I was always interested in science. And as a natural extension of it came that, IIT is one good college in India that we have. And therefore, that became my sole target. And from sort of 8th standard, I started working backwards that if I have to achieve that, what do I need to do in my 8th standard? And started preparing accordingly. IIT happened. And I think when IIT happened, I was pretty open to doing everything there. I tried different things. I was inclined again towards research and technology. So I did a lot of internships in this field. I had a research internship. I went to Japan in this company called Daikin, which was supposed to have its great manufacturing processes. But while doing that, I didn't quite enjoy it a lot. So while I enjoyed my courses, so I enjoyed engineering as a subject, I did not appreciate it enough when I applied it to my work. And that's when I got open to other career options that were available. And consulting looked very exciting because it promised me that I could do a lot of different projects in a short span of time, which it truly lived to its word. And therefore, I chose consulting. I did EY. I was happy there. I wanted to do an MBA. And because I loved consulting, I just continued doing consulting after my MBA as well.
Wow. Okay. So STEM was the way that you wanted to go. Then you said, it made sense for you to sort of choose, doing consulting because of the diversity and the kind of, work area where you learn and be able to kind of, use a lot more because of different, varied problems that you would actually see across industries. So while you were thinking of an MBA school, what occurred to you? Why was IIM the first choice? And again, you set your goals high. You wanted to go to an IMA. How did you keep going at it? And these are both top institutions within the IITs and the IMAs, right? So how did you consistently make sure that you are on the curve, not just setting, but achieving these, it's hard, Shubham. So can you even tell these students what is required to really keep, on to doing what you're doing and then seeing that achievement come through.
Right. And I think, and while I come to your specific question, I think that's true, which I observe not only for IIT, IIM, but also while working in BCG. Traits remain same. I think smartness is less valued, and what is more valuable is sort of hard work. And I would want to break hard work into consistency. And because I'm from maths background, I'll give this maths analogy. So if you if you have 365 days in a year. If you just improve yourself by 1%, so it becomes 1.01, and you multiply that 365 times, the number is 35. So 1% improvement every day makes you 35 times better, and 1% deterioration every day brings you to 0. So that's the power of just 1% improvement. But the important part is consistency. And that's true for IIT, IIM, and even surviving in BCG. That whatever you do, you need to be consistent in that. So you decide to put some number of hours to study, but you do that every day. You do not find excuses to not do it even a single day, because then you fall into the trap of that 1% deterioration. So I think the answer to your question in one word would be consistency, doing what you are doing every day and trying to be just 1% better every day.
Wonderful. That's a very important thought. I think that students should definitely take that into consideration. I think that has been something that I've heard even Sanaa say, is that consistency is so important across while you're actually in consulting. And something I want to bring out also is anything that you feel in terms of hindsight that you could have changed or done differently while you're now here. Right? That you could have done differently while you were a student, while you were in high school, or while you were, progressing from your bachelor's on to doing your master's. Anything that you would want to change?
Right, of course. So, and I'm also part of recruitment at BCG. So when we hire people, there are different aspects of someone's personality that we are looking at, right? So one is definitely an educational background. So consultants do look for a good academic record, but that is not sufficient, because we will find that in India, there are many people who have good academic records, and they probably do not want the best academic record. They want someone who is more wholesome. And when we talk about that wholesomeness, there are different aspects to it. So for example, are you passionate about something? And it could be anything. So for example, now the audience is in 10th standard. When you come to college, we find a lot of opportunities that we can pursue a lot of hobbies then. Many of my friends, including me, I could start new hobbies when I was in college. So thinking about life other than just studies is also an important trait, because that gives us a more holistic perspective. Because if again, when Sanaa talked about we are doctors to companies, we go to CEOs and we talk to them. They have all the information already. So all the research that we do, someone else could have also done that research. But taking that research together, building it into a story and deciding what is to be done needs more than just analytical skills. It requires, having life in ourselves so that we can bring life to companies. And for that, we require, it could be either sports, dance, music, anything, but have something in your life other than studies, which is important to you. And if you do not get that time in 11th or 12th, you can still pursue them after 12th. But bring something to plate when you go as a student and are being hired other than just academics. And I think I focus that on less. And in hindsight, I think that's super important. So I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is definitely very useful for students to understand that they should also focus not just on academics, but so many other areas, right? So if you're passionate about something, whether it's singing, dance, whether it's sports, right? Because you're absolutely right, when you're working with teammates, you have teammates of different interests, it kind of engages you, right? In a conversation, and you're talking about different things. And, you hear someone about problem solving, and what depth they can go into, because they've actually done that for something they're passionate about, right? Right. So I absolutely agree with that thought process, and I think students should definitely think about that more closely. So what are the roles and responsibilities, Shubham, if you want to expand a bit on when you were working as a consultant, after your bachelor's, and then now that you're working at BCG, how do you see your roles changing a bit? And how do you see your growth?
Right. So there are two questions. One is role and second is growth. I think the one important aspect that changes in role is ownership. So when I was in EY and just out of IIT, the ownership expected out of me was lesser as compared to the ownership that is expected out of me now. I don't think smartness changes in a person so easily in 5 years or so. So that still remains. But taking ownership, being responsible of what is done and doing everything that is required to make sure that you are committed to it. I think ownership significantly changes as we grow up in the hierarchy. And in fact, that is valued early on as well. So at junior levels, if someone is able to show ownership of the work, instead of blaming on circumstances, I could not do this, you come up with answers, these are the problems, but these are the potential solutions, and I would want to try that. So it's an attitude. So having ownership on your work is an attitude change, that instead of blaming on things, you come up with solutions. And I think getting more ownership is the growth trajectory also that it gets linked to. But to specifically answer on growth, I think different consulting companies offer a different type of growth trajectory. But on an average, consulting has a very sharp growth in terms of their offering. So between 10 to 15 years, you sort of reach from an associate level to a partner level where you start sharing sort of profit of the company. And therefore, the growth is pretty fast when you talk about consulting as compared to many other industries.
That's brilliant. That's I'm sure that is very useful for a lot of the students. And if we just had to break down also, we spoke about the different areas in consulting. So do you currently work across, more strategy, management, operations? Can you throw some light over these different areas?
Right. So if I have to put it in my words, like what does a consultant do? I think there are three parts to it. First part is what, and the context is that we go to a CXO, CEO level client, we start talking to them, and how does it flow from there? The first question is, what should a company do? The first part is what. For example, I was working with an IT company. They wanted to double its growth in 5 years. So what should they do? They could be providing their IT software to a banking company, to a manufacturing company, to many other companies. So what should they do in the next 5 years? That's the first question, which is pure strategy. What should a company do? Second is, how should they do? Given that they want to do something, how should they do? Where should they invest? How many people should they hire? Should they upskill their employees? Should they acquire some other company? How should they do that? That is also strategy. Defining the pathway to achieve your target. And the third part is implementation. That when we know how to achieve it, we work along with the company for those 2-3 years and help them achieve whatever they want to achieve. So these are the 3 steps of it. And across different projects, I've worked in what, how, and actually implementing it. And I think the skills which are required are sort of transferable. I think you talked about transferability as well. They're transferable across all of these because the primary skill which comes is having the ownership, which is required across all these 3 of them.
Brilliant. Thank you. And do you want to also mention, you chose IMA. Were you thinking of even applying to universities outside? Do you feel having that added to your CV would also make a difference? Are you thinking of an opportunity that might allow you to go outside India as well?
Right. Of course, right. So I did sort of think about, should I do an MBA from India or outside? So firstly, in terms of, does it limit my opportunity? So if I do an MBA from, say, US, it opens me to companies in US more than it opens me to company in India. So probably I would be in BCG US versus I am in BCG India if I did it from IIM. So the first question that I have to ask myself is, do I want to be working in India or do I want to be working in US? And if I want to work in US, then doing an MBA from outside would be much more helpful. For example, I've applied to mobility, which means that I'm transferring from BCG India to BCG Dubai. And I could have transferred to BCG US, for example. But transferring from India to another country is more difficult as compared to you just doing MBA in that country and getting a job there. So if your long-term objective, or at least your mid-term objective, is to be working in another country for a few years. I think MBA from that country would be helpful. In my case, I always knew that I wanted to be in India, and why I love to travel outside and I take consulting assignments which are outside India and explore that, my base will still remain India. So I think that's the choice that has to be made.
Fabulous. Wonderful. That's been, again, a very engaging conversation, Shubham, and thank you for sharing all that information for our students today.
Thank you.
Sana, anything that you feel you want to add to the conversation that I was having with Shubham?
No, I think Shubham has covered it really well. So I would actually maybe request if you want to open it up to the students if they have any questions for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what I was going to do. So students, do you all have any questions? Anyone wants to raise their hand? I can allow them to talk. Would be happy to take any questions, or if you want to add them to the chat box, anything that works for you all.
I think asking questions in a group is always a very difficult task. Maybe Dhaval, you should have some prizes for people who ask any questions. Dhaval, you're on mute.
Dhaval, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry. So I got a question, but I think that question is very, it's not pertinent to our discussion, but there's a question about best way to pursue law. Does anyone want to take that question on law, or I can talk about that at a later point? But no, I don't think students, have you all understood about consulting? Do you feel that it's been good? If it's been a good session, can you all put your thumbs up and let our experts know that this was a fantastic conversation? Can everyone put their thumbs up on the chat? Yeah, can we ask everyone to put their thumbs up and tell us how this session was? Okay, we're getting thumbs up. Okay, fantastic. Great. So Shreya, is there anything else you think that we need to address? Anything else?
I think the session in itself was quite enlightening and encouraging in a way that, it keeps our children motivated and focused that what they need to do, they need to persistently and constantly follow that, because this is a generation who have a lot of options open in front of them. And in that process, they tend to lose their focus and interest quite frequently. Ye bhi hai, wo bhi hai, where to go, how to, satisfy my curiosity. So yeah, that is a very good advice, to be focused and constantly work towards your goal.
Wonderful, wonderful. But thank you for being a brilliant audience. And I know that we've taken enough time from my experts as well. And looking at the time, I just want to thank both of them, Shubham, Sanaa. It's been an incredible session. And I'd just say this to everyone is that take the time to think about what you really want to do. And, there's so much support around you. You should try and use that support and come to these kind of sessions and engage in any conversations with us. And if you still have any questions, do send them to us. We'll put that across to our experts as well at any point in time.
I will try to have a reflection session with them, and I'll get back to you maybe later on, as in their understanding from the session and if they have further questions in their mind.
Thank you, Shreya. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.